Does Nutrafol for men really regrow hair? In this video, I'm going to show you the actual clinical research on Nutrafol for men, where men took this supplement for several months. I'm going to show you how much they took. I'm going to show you the before and after pictures, the potential side effects, and I'm even going to take a stab at what I think might be the key ingredients in Nutrafol for men. And let's begin with this paper, which is not a clinical study. It's actually a report of 4 people, 3 women and 1 man, who took Nutrafol supplements for up to 7 months. Now, this paper does show before and after pictures, but unfortunately, I can't show them to you because the paper actually has a watermark on it that says do not copy, and if you do, there will be penalties. Regardless, it only involved 4 people, and one of them was a guy. I'm not going to pay any more attention to it. Let's move on and see what else we have. By the way, all the references for the Nutrafol research that I'm going to show you now are in the description, so check them out if you want to do your own research. Next up is this paper, a prospective 6-month single-blinded study evaluating changes in hair growth and quality using a nutraceutical supplement in men and women of different ethnicities. This clinical trial involved 45 healthy men and 51 healthy premenopausal women who were grappling with self-perceived hair loss. Results: everyone who completed this study rated on questionnaires that they felt that Nutrafol promoted improvements in hair thickness, appearance, and coverage on the scalp, and that included 70% of the men who took Nutrafol as well. And when investigators looked at people who took the supplement, they rated the improvements in men even greater. They said that about 84% of the men taking the supplement showed improvements as well after 6 months. Nutrafol was reported to show significant improvement in hair growth in African American men, Asian men, and Caucasian non-Hispanic men after 6 months, although ironically, Nutrafol did not appear to work as well in Hispanic men. Of the 43 guys who completed this clinical trial, only 2 of them have before and after pictures, and here they are, and I will let you decide if you see significant improvements in hair growth and coverage. That brings us to this next 6-month-long clinical trial, which involved 112 men with self-described hair loss. The hair loss was confirmed by a dermatologist, which is good, but keep in mind that they excluded men who had alopecia or more advanced hair loss. Regardless, what are the results here? So after 6 months, men taking Nutrafol reported favorable improvements in their hair compared to those who took placebos. Now, I do want to point out that none of the men in this study appeared to be actively shedding hair, because when they did what's called the hair pull test to see how much hair came out of the scalp, nobody appeared to be pulling any hairs out. So that potentially could be a limitation of the study. But regardless, what about the before and after pictures? Let's take a look at them now. And if we do that, here are the before and after pictures of 3 of the men who took Nutrafol versus 1 of the guys who took a placebo. And I also want to call your attention to the NH classifications, where NH2 is the earliest visible sign of male pattern baldness. Stage 3 is considered the first stage of significant balding, and stage 4 is an even more advanced hair loss. Now, if I was going to score this, I would say it appears from these pictures that Nutrafol is having the most effects on the earlier stages of hair loss, as you can see from the picture on the far left, although I do see improvements to a lesser degree in the other stages as well. But you tell me below what you think. And that brings us to this clinical trial, which came out in 2026. 250 women and men were recruited for this 6-month-long study. And here's a breakdown of the participants. As you can see, only about 25%, or 49 people in this study, were actually men. And those guys were using the Nutrafol for Men supplement, while the women were taking the female versions. Results of this study indicated that after about 6 months, the hair strands of the men were about 7% thicker, and those men also said that they felt that their hair looked healthier, fuller, and that thinning on their scalps seemed to be slowing down. Between 80 and 98% of the men also reported on questionnaires that they felt like their hair quality had improved as well. And that's nice, but you know what? this study did not show any before and after pictures. And I found that odd because for a company that's selling a premium hair growth supplement, I would think it to be fair to show before and after pictures for a study that lasted half a year, especially since visual improvement is part of this supplement's appeal. Now, to be fair, the absence of before and after pictures doesn't invalidate this study, but it is a noticeable limitation in my view. I also want to call your attention to these before and after pictures that appear on the Nutrafol for Men's page of Nutrafol.com. These pictures look impressive. However, I'm unclear where they're coming from. There's no reference for what study they're derived from, and I don't recall seeing these pictures in any of the studies I reviewed. Now, it could be that they're derived from a study that has yet to be published, or they simply could be testimonials from men who've taken Nutrafol. Either way, I wanted to show them to you because they're pretty impressive. Here's a table that summarizes the Nutrafol studies that I was able to locate. If we omit the review of the 4 case reports that only involve 1 man, that leaves us with 7 clinical trials. Of those 7 clinical trials, most of them involve women. All of the studies indicate reported improvements in hair quality after 3 to 6 months of daily use, and only 1 clinical trial involved only men who took Nutrafol. Those men did report improvements in their hair after taking Nutrafol, but it also suffers from some methodological problems that prevented researchers from counting the terminal hairs, which are the longer, thicker hairs that men who take Nutrafol are probably most interested in. Be aware that in several of the studies, people who were diagnosed with alopecia or advanced hair loss were excluded from Nutrafol clinical trials, and all of the studies I located were supported by research from Nutrafol, and many of the researchers themselves had ties to the Nutrafol company. And while I'm personally okay with them conducting their own research, because I like it when companies pump money into their supplements, most companies don't, on a personal note, given the resources of the Nutrafol company, I would expect to see a more rigorous body of research on this supplement than I was able to see here. None of the studies revealed any major side effects from taking Nutrafol, with the exception of maybe minor GI problems, which can probably be minimized by starting with less than is recommended for the first week to give your body time to adjust to this new supplement. That said, I'd also be remiss if I didn't point out this strange report of liver injury in a 26-year-old woman who was taking Nutrafol. To be fair, this is the only report of potential Nutrafol-induced liver injury that I'm aware of, but I'll link to my video on this report below if you want to learn more about what happened. Here's the supplement facts label for Nutrafol for Men, and as you can see, there are a lot of ingredients. While it's possible that all the ingredients work synergistically together, if I were to take a guess, the key ingredients most responsible for Nutrafol's effects would be, number 1, saw-palmetto, because it is a 5-alpha reductase inhibitor, and maybe tocotrienols, because there is one study on that as well. And I just thought I would mention that for the guys who might want to DIY test this for themselves. If you have any comments on Nutrafol for Men, leave a comment below, and if you want to support my independent research on dietary supplements, buy me a coffee. The link is below, and I'll see you in the next video.